big sky, big potential. In association with Mills and Reeve, this is Eastern Promise. Achieving more together. Welcome to the East of England's Embassy of Sound, the Eastern Promise podcast. I'm your chargé d'affaires, Mike Rigby, and on this episode, I'm bringing you the exciting and insightful highlights from Leeds. Wait, what? Is that right? Yes! Yes, Leeds. That's because our region dominated the UK's Real Estate Investment and Infrastructure Forum, UKREiiF 2025. And Eastern Promise was there to get around as much as the show as possible. We brought you the best of day one before the sun had even risen on day two. And day two was so jam-packed, only now have we squeezed out all the juice. And remember, listener, for this service we charge no fee. So prepare yourself for Wonderful Wednesday at UKREiiF, brought to you by Eastern Promise. It was a windy Wednesday at the Royal Armouries in Leeds, but the sun still shone and the crowds, if anything, were even bigger. And as I turned to my diary, I noticed that the second day of UKREiiF started with an event marked as the very highest priority. The Cambridge-Manchester Partnership Panel at the Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Pavilion. It was every bit as exuberant and determined as expected, yet more so. In fact, the chair of the session, Innovate Cambridge director Catherine Chapman, had to work hard to keep her panellists in line.
My panel are misbehaving already. We're in for a bit of fun this morning.
Sorry, I'm stuck in some Beyonce-style wind machine, which was it's not a rider. I didn't request it. Just to be clear. So,
people have said from time to time, you just had a brilliant onboarding strategy coming to Cambridge. To which the reply is, you flatter us by thinking there was a strategy. Because actually, what we did was just very Cambridge-like. We just rocked up, and we just went to things and had something interesting to say.
Catherine and her panellists, Professor of Innovation at the University of Manchester and Head of Unit M, Lou Cordwell, Chair of AstraZeneca, Sean Grady, Fran Cousins, Senior Partner for the South East at Deloitte, and leading light in both the Cambridge and Manchester Angels, Simon Thorpe. Let's listen to some of the key points of the session. First, Chair of AstraZeneca, Sean Grady, explains the ties that connect AstraZeneca to both cities.
So we're number one in the FTSE. We're also the biggest private R&D investor in the United Kingdom. We spend £3 billion in R&D every year. We're 10,000 people across the UK. And guess what? 5,000 of those are in the northwest of England, in Macclesfield, and 4,500 are in Cambridge. So in many respects, we already have that footprint and those linkages. Those of you who have been around paying attention for long enough will know that AstraZeneca's legacy in the UK is in the north of England. So Zeneca came out of ICI. ICI was a northern chemical company. We were in Blakely with our dyestuffs division, and pharmaceuticals came out of dyestuffs and moved a little bit further south to suburban Alderley Edge. So we've got that presence. We're fortunate, therefore, to really, truly benefit in enormously from both being in Cambridge and being in the northwest / Manchester. So this for us is a terrific sort of opportunity to almost role model what's happening, to publicise all the benefits and the good things that we get out of being in both places and the collaborations that we have there, and then work with colleagues across business, across public and private sector to actually improve both places. So wholeheartedly in support of the linkage and the collaboration and the cooperation.
Next, let's hear from Fran Cousins and then Simon Thorpe.
I'm the practice senior partner for the South East of Deloitte, and some of you may not know that actually a third of Deloitte's revenues every year, over £1 billion, is generated outside London. And we have a regional leadership team, of which I am one, and of course I have a colleague in Manchester, and we've just invested significantly in our Manchester offices, refurbished in the centre of Manchester. And so what we are doing as part of our contribution to the partnership is really focusing on how, as a professional services organisation, we can support particularly the mid-scale companies as they grow. And one innovation that we put in place in Cambridge is what we call our Life Sciences Catalyst. So this is a physical space for organisations to come together, to collaborate, for people to work, to host events. And that's just celebrated its first anniversary with over 1,000 events in the first year, multiple conversations that have led to innovation and even significant investment.
Many of us have personal connections with both cities. That's very much true for me. I went to Manchester University. I was reminded last week when somebody kindly invited me to the Bruce Springsteen concert in Manchester. I couldn't go, but I said the last time I went to see him in Manchester was in 1981, and the ticket price was £6. So first of all, there are three things really you've got to bear in mind with me. One is around the angel investment ecosystem, which is the very early stage backing of innovative companies. The second aspect of it is that the technology transfer arm. So in Manchester, as Lou's just mentioned, there's the Innovation Factory. In Cambridge, it's Cambridge Enterprise. And these universities work very closely together, called 6U and 10U, the 6 universities, 10 universities. Manchester and Cambridge work very closely together. And then at the funding level, many people in this room will be aware of Northern Gritstone, backing the 3 universities of Sheffield, Manchester and Leeds, but now actually also Liverpool, which was announced a week ago, which is great news for the North. And in Cambridge, we've got CIC, Cambridge Innovation Capital. So keep in mind with me, there are 3 things that we're trying to do to join up the ecosystems.
Back to football, if I may, very quickly. As part of arriving in Cambridge, we did get close to the football club, because it's one thing to meet people from the university and all the clever people, but you don't actually very often come across real people. So we aligned to Cambridge United Football Club, and I ended up being the chairman. How did that happen? But we created a programme called Active Science. So when Cambridge United are going out to schools doing football and netball and all of that, there is now a science programme in the schools outreach programme, which we've been doing for 7 or 8 years. And then our colleagues in Macclesfield said, so how come we haven't got one of those? So we now have that with Macclesfield Football Club, with my close friend Robbie Savage, would you believe? And we've done it at Everton as well, because we've got a site in Liverpool. So this sort of schools STEM programme that came from us moving to Cambridge is now in Mactown and in Everton, and Lou has promised me it will be in Manchester United or Manchester City for the start of next season. So.
And I would like to say, Sean, that I think the rest of us are real people that accidentally ended up in the university environment. But
I'll be the judge of that.
Sean, Fran and Simon there. Next, a frankly dashing, handsome young chap in the audience had a question.
Eastern Promise, Mike Rigby. We went up to interview Lou in Manchester, which is, I'm really proud to say, the 3rd most popular episode we've put out ever. What really became apparent to me was the shared values piece. Not exclusive values, but shared values between the 2 cities. And I just wondered if the panel would like to reflect on that.
Apologise that this has become a bit of a match of the day. But actually, sport is an amazing active thing for just bringing people together, you know. And all joking apart, I mean, it's for a big organisation moving to a relatively small 150,000 person city, you know, getting involved in first the foundation and then the football club, it's just a great way of engaging with the community, you know, getting to know people, supporting the community. This is the point where we trot out that Cambridge is the most unequal city in the country in terms of life expectancy between the Abbey ward and posher parts of Cambridge, if I can put it that way. As a big organisation, to be able to contribute in addressing some of those challenges, which is shameful, really, isn't it, that we live in a city that's got the biggest life expectancy discrepancy in the country. So it's a good platform to actually do our bit to address those challenges, Mike.
Mike, it's a really good question. And the reason I'm part of this is because of shared values. And I'll give you a good example. At the Cambridge Angels and Manchester Angels, you know, why did these two groups come together? And we discussed for quite a long time what was the ethos of Manchester Angels? How was it going to be different from Cambridge Angels? And in Cambridge Angels, we have a sort of what we call a humility policy. We don't like arrogance. And in Manchester, we have the same policy, but it's got a slightly stronger name in Manchester. But essentially, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same ethos. You know, essentially, we don't just want to invest in companies to make a return. We hope we're going to make a return. As you know, it's a highly risky environment to invest in. But we're there to actually support entrepreneurship and actually see and build real businesses. Lou's talked about building businesses of scale. That's what we're really about. How do we actually turn these startups into real scale-ups that make a real difference and employ a significant number of people to address this inclusive innovation point? You know, we know the benefits of innovation are not spread widely among communities. And this is very much a focus for Annie Burnham in Manchester and for Lou. Yeah. Shared values are really important, but that's why I'm here.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think it's one of the things that really surprised us, perhaps not on an individual level, but just how across the piece, the more people we spoke to in each ecosystem, the challenges were shared. Both cities in different ways have got real success stories. If our mayor was here, he'd be talking about the fastest growing city in the UK, all of those things, which are true, but we've got this cavernous gap between who benefits and who doesn't. And I think, you know, we're going to basically try and pull a really difficult thing off. You know, it's been pretty difficult getting to this point to get everybody on the same page in the mission. I think above all, the motivation is cracking that conundrum, because what we can't have as a country is another 25 years of that gap growing. And I'm not going to be political, but, you know, some people, that's a kind of moral imperative that we don't want to live in a society where, you know, you're kind of tripping over child poverty as you're watching more cranes go up. That's not success, I think, in our definition. We believe it's not an anti-growth agenda, it's a pro-growth. It's just a different flavour of growth. And I think that even if you don't morally care about that, which I think most people in this room would, politically we can't carry on. Like, there's an instability, as we've seen in the last few weeks of the election, that comes with that. When you leave a whole set of people behind in society, that's really destabilising for how a country can kind of move forward and be united and deliver success. So I think on a million levels we have to crack that problem. And I don't think it's overly ambitious to say we've now got the stakeholders and the framework through this partnership to maybe just stand a chance of pulling that off. And if we do that, that's not just significant on a UK level, that's globally significant. There's an awful lot of people watching to see whether we can crack that conundrum, because everybody's talking about inclusive innovation and inclusive growth, but actually quite grassroots and quite granular pretty quickly. This is quite a gritty, knotty problem for us to go and solve, and it will come down to individuals and individual projects and tracking what works and being honest about what doesn't and all of those things. And I think the harder that gets, the more that will keep us motivated on why we're trying to do this.
Yeah, I think really well put. Look, and I mean, the question also is to anyone in the audience here, if you do have an interest specifically in this area, you know, we're very open to working with anybody here that is interested in tackling that challenge with us, alongside us.
So I think the benefit of values is it coalesces action and it enables us to magnify impact. So just a specific example of that, we just finished a 6-year partnership with the Papworth Trust. And part of that partnership, Papworth Trust supports people with learning disabilities who find it difficult to get a foothold in society and a job. And one of the practical things we've done every year for those 6 years is to support interview practice for their clients. And as a result, multiple of those individuals have now got a job. And the reason why we've done that is because it aligns with our values, and it aligns with the values of collaborations that you can see exemplified on the stage here. But it is a practical, tangible reality how some of the most excluded members of our society are now able to make a positive contribution.
What a great question that young man asked. Afterwards, I caught up with Catherine Chapman to ask her about the central message of the panel. So, Catherine Chapman, for those foolish enough not to have been here for what was my most looked forward to panel of the whole UKREiiF, Cambridge x Manchester, and I say this is a long-removed Mancunian, can you tell them what they have very foolishly missed, please?
Yeah, we talked about the partnership and what it can deliver over the next 12 months for both of the regions. And it's an innovation-first partnership. So this is about what can we learn from each other about starting up companies, about investment in companies, about scaling up companies. But it's also about how can we use both of our capabilities and assets to support companies to stay in the UK and have benefit for UK PLC. But the third aspect of the partnership is making sure that this benefit and the growth of companies and the growth overall has a benefit for all. So really an important part of the discussion was inclusive innovation. You know, how can we benefit the wider regions and the people that don't necessarily benefit from some of the knowledge-intensive companies that we have at the minute?
So, I mean, we did talk about that you did talk about that on the panel, and it was really clear that there was so much going on where companies, huge companies like AstraZeneca, what you do with Innovate Cambridge, the Cambridge Pledge, they're all touching lives and across both cities, and it's really the ideas, the out-the-box thinking, and the innovative approaches to actually tackling these issues was what actually I thought made that panel so exciting. Do you want to just reflect on that again?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Mike. I think the thing is that we all want to do more, so we've all got tangible examples, and Lou had some, and as you say, the football club and the stuff that AstraZeneca are doing, but there's still inequality, and the stats don't show that we've made a difference yet. And we think that, okay, we sit in the most innovative science and tech cluster in the world. If we can't solve these problems working together with the community that actually probably have some of the answers, then, you know, we're doing something wrong. So yeah, I mean, this is the exciting interface between community, science and the whole cluster.
And is there a message? I mean, what's happening next? What's the next steps? What should people be looking forward to in the next 12 months? Because speaking purely for myself and for Eastern Promise, we're really excited to see how we can support this and push it further.
Really appreciate it, Mike. But I guess the thing is, when is this going out? Because we are going to have some really exciting announcements over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, it's going out today. Okay, so
he said.
Okay, so the next step is that watch this space, because over the next 2 to 3 weeks we're going to have some really exciting announcements to make that are really going to supercharge this partnership, and we're going to have, you know, resource to be able to do everything that we have said on the panel this morning and more, and it's going to make a huge difference to UK PLC. This is the type of partnership that is going to demonstrate good growth.
Oh, well, I'm excited now, but I don't think you're not going to tell me anything. I can see it, so keep your secrets, and we look forward to seeing what comes of it. Catherine Chapman, what a delight. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Next, hot foot over to the Invest Suffolk stand where Rob Hancock and member of the Suffolk Business Board, Oliver Paul, were waiting.
So here we are outside the fantastic beautiful contrast colours of the Invest Suffolk stand, and we're here with Rob Hancock. I love these badges, these UKREiiF badges, because you don't have to look far to see what someone's job title is. Rob Hancock, Assistant Director, Housing Planning and Growth at Suffolk County Council, and Oliver Paul, Director on the Suffolk Business Board. That's the capacity you're here today. So, Rob, I'll start with you. This is the second day of UKREiiF. How's it been?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I've been here since yesterday morning. It's my first time at UKREiiF, and it feels incredibly busy and incredibly positive. I gather from the organisers there's 15,000 people here, which is a record number. I think it was something like 10 or 12,000 last year, and it certainly feels like that as you walk around the place. There's people everywhere. There's lots and lots of stands, lots and lots of talk. So it's felt very positive. From a Suffolk perspective, we've got a good position and we've had lots of traffic coming past, lots of good conversations so far with investors and potentially other partners. We've brought with us this year a range of investment propositions, both public land and privately owned land, which ranges really from some fairly smaller sized potential employment sites through to some very strategic land opportunities such as our Freeport East land. And as I say, there's been lots and lots of interest in right from those smaller packages right through to the larger packages of land. So I think we're very pleased with how it's gone so far and hoping for another successful day today.
Oliver, there's really fantastic sites put forward all across the package that was delivered yesterday on the newsroom stage. What did you take from that event with your chairman, Mark Pendlington, leading the way?
I think the bit that resounded clearly for me was the importance of having a clear message. So, it is, as Rob says, it's really busy here. There's lots of enthusiasm, lots of excitement, but you can't overlook the fact that there's also a huge number of regions who are all selling a message of some sort. The clear point that Suffolk has is we have a plan, we know what our strengths are, and we do just get on and get things done. When people stop you and say, well, where is Suffolk and what's that all about? We are a place that powers, feeds and supplies Britain. And Suffolk has this reputation of just quietly getting on and getting things done. And that's what Mark delivered in the message yesterday, was that we have that ability to get things done. We know what we want to get done. So we're now really here looking for investors, which, is a bit of a challenge. It's a little bit like hunting them down and not terrorising them too much. But we're also spreading the wider word about the county and the opportunity to invest in Suffolk. So even if we're talking to other service providers and consultants and contractors, it's still an opportunity to get Suffolk on their radar and build our message.
And frankly, it should be on their radar already, but when we come back in 12 months' time, how will the message out of Suffolk have got even stronger?
There's obviously a big transition going on with devolution and redefinition of unitary authorities and so on and so forth. I think it's a fantastic, exciting time, because actually it's almost forced a little bit of housekeeping within property portfolios and asset bases and so on and so forth, that we need to collectively as district, borough and county need to get together and actually look to see what they've got and have that plan, so that when the mayor comes in, we are there able to present them with something that can be picked up and run with straight away. So, I think next year when you come back, you'll see that unified Norfolk and Suffolk investment proposition being put to base, and we would have sorted through even further about where the opportunities are, and so it would be much easier for investors to come and find us.
Back out into the sunshine once again, and across to the Oxford-Cambridge Supercluster Mega Pavilion! Floating in Leeds Dock, where Chair of the Supercluster Board, Dr. Andy Williams, was fresh from a visit from Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook. First, Andy summarised the progress of the Oxford-Cambridge Supercluster to date.
Yeah, we're on a floating pavilion, which I'm told won't sink. A good reflection of where we got to with the growth corridor, which has stopped sinking, has stabilised itself and is growing. So really good times.
Helm, sir? Of course it does.
Well, no, we've had some good progress. We've just had a session with Matthew Pennycook, the Minister for MHCLG. Lots of positive news about what's going on around Oxford-Cambridge growth corridor. And as you'll tell me many times, which obviously stretches out to Norwich and down to Swindon, is we've finally got everybody aligned. So we have a central government team and a CAV who is working exclusively on the Oxford corridor. It's a whole team across the whole of government offices. And we brought them together with the Supercluster Board, which I chair, the University Group, local authorities, England's economic heartland and East West Rail. And for the first time, everybody's aligned. There's some government funding. We've got Patrick Valent, the growth champion now in the corridor. And so for the first time, everybody's aligned in the same place. So as you pointed out last year, lots of bits of exciting things. This year we've got that complete nucleus of connectivity which will make sure that this thing really happens now.
How can Eastern Promise help you facilitate those conversations?
So one thing you do which has already helped, and I don't want to be sycophantic, but you guys, Eastern Promise are always hopelessly optimistic. And at all the times where there's a lot of stuff going on, about with politics and changes, elections and all that sort of stuff. And I hope you'll see from me as well, I'm hopelessly optimistic. And what Eastern Promise can help us with is take us to places where we can have those optimistic conversations, bringing together the whole of the Oxford-Cambridge region and making sure it includes Peterborough and Northampton. It requires you to be optimistic and be positive about everything that you do. And that's where we need to get to as a region. It's where we need to get to as a country. We need to stop worrying so much about stuff. There's lots of things. We haven't got the water. We haven't got, we need to make sure the environment's secured. We need to make sure this benefits local communities. There are lots of things that we need to do, but we need to re-establish that connection with each other to make sure they're all viewed positively. Nobody's here to wreck anything. Everyone's here to drive improvements, build up the economy, provide opportunities for our young people, provide opportunities for people who aren't quite so young, who need to change roles as a consequence of everything that's going on in this world. And so Eastern Promise, staying relentlessly positive, looking for those positive conversations is the best thing we can do.
You heard Andy there. We need a simplified approach to the Supercluster Board so we don't overwhelm them with offers of support. That's perhaps something that the incoming mayor of the Norfolk and Suffolk Combined County Authority will be able to do most effectively once he or she takes the reins next year. My thanks to Andy for his time, and if there is an adjective that's embodied my career to date, then it's hopeless. And now for highlights from an extremely important panel. How we can get the region and the UK's economy moving through transport improvements in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. On that panel were Naomi Green of England's economic heartland, Andrew Summers of Transport East, also present Steve Beale of Freeport East, who played a key role in our previous coverage of UKREiiF from day one, Natalie Webble of East West Rail, Dan Mansfield of the National Wealth Fund, and Paul Bristow, newly elected Mayor for the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. We'll return to new Mayor Paul Bristow shortly, but first, here's Naomi Green.
Andrew, in a similar way to me, looks at the big strategic transport connectivity, and our intention is that we work across boundaries so that no one feels there's a boundary between the two places. It's got to be seamless because, to be honest, where people travel is irrelevant compared to the geography that we work on. So, Andrew, over to you as my seamless other half.
Thank you very much, Naomi, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andrew Summers. I'm Chief Executive of Transport East. We're the subnational transport body for Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Southend and Thurrock. We're a partnership of both the public and private sector, so all of our local authorities, 29 of them, are part of our body. We have the Chambers of Commerce and the Business Board, as well as the DFT, National Highways and Network Rail, so it really is a cross-sector, cross-party group of people that have come together around a shared vision. We have an incredibly strong partnership with the CPCA and England's Economic Heartland, and I think we feel we have to work together because there's a real prize there.
Naomi Green and Andrew Summers there. Dan Mansfield.
So, National Wealth Fund. We've been established by government to assist with delivering the growth mission. And recently the Chancellor gave an updated steer on what the government wants us to focus on. So, 4 key areas: clean energy, advanced manufacturing, digital and tech, and transport. So we've got a key role to play in helping the combined authorities, regional economies, deliver their investment plans to help deliver the industrial strategy through investment, and particularly my focus is on transport. For lots of transport projects, if you go to the Department for Transport, there will be some grant funding available for some of those schemes, or you have to get them into the Network Rail Enhancements pipeline, and that's kind of a cyclical process. Most of these projects, or even things like City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements, there's got to be a local contribution. That local contribution has got to be funded from somewhere. For those sort of projects, you need to think of innovative ways of doing these things. So things like will often be posited about land value capture and using the value of property and development to kind of deliver that. That's fine, but that comes somewhere down the line. If you're going to kind of leverage that from house builders who are going to be building X number of houses over X number of years, some of those receipts are not going to come in for 10, 20 years maybe. And we talk a lot about private finance, but I think a lot of the time what we actually mean is private funding. It's more difficult for a bank or a private financial institution to look at something that could be very variable income streams over a period of time to repay an upfront investment. And kind of part of what the wealth fund's there to do is we can either work with local authorities and lend to them, and we lend to them at a pretty advantageous rate. It's lower than the rate that they can borrow from the Public Works Loan Board, which is the default way that local authorities finance their capital programmes. Or we can work with the private sector organisations and deploy a number of financial products that kind of help maybe de-risk projects a little bit. So we've got the mandate from government to maybe take a little bit more risk in those projects that might be just the thing that nudges them over the edge into a viable project.
And is your engagement always via a local authority, or are you happy to talk to developers specifically as long as they're sort of supported by the local?
So we do work directly with the local authorities, but if there's people out there who've got a project that wants financing that's within our mandate, then we can lend to private sector organisations. We can invest in private sector organisations.
Economy is huge. Already the region across the corridor accounts for about 70% of GDP, but it's constrained by the connectivity across the region. And what East West Rail is intending to do is help to connect that region. At the moment, the impact of that 7% on GDP is just over £40 billion to the UK economy. By maximising the full potential of that region, which includes a full-length route of East West Rail, the Public First report released earlier this year looks at that being around £78 billion. So that's a massive increase in productivity and impact from the region.
Natalie Webble.
In terms of the East West Rail project, the ability to offer benefits as soon as they're available is absolutely part of the scheme in terms of not waiting till that end result, full A to B service. It's looking at where there are opportunities to deliver early benefits, and that's absolutely, I think, the thinking that we need to be having when we're doing these big, complex infrastructure projects. Where are the sort of quick wins and the things that benefit people sooner?
Andrew Summers.
Economic growth, more social inclusion and driving down carbon emissions. Those are the outcomes we want to see. How will they have been delivered by the things that we've asked Treasury for in the spending review submission this year? And they talk very much around developing the connectivity corridors between Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, Norwich, Suffolk, Ipswich and Essex, specifically East-West Rail, Eastern Section, Ely and Hawley, and through the RIS programme, A47, A11, A14 and A120, but very clear priorities that we've got in our strategy.
Lastly, at least for my personal sojourn to West Yorkshire, I joined delegates in the Team Cambridgeshire and Peterborough pavilion one last time. Armed with a copy of Trump's Guide to Mythical Creatures and an absolutely huge butterfly net for Hunting for Unicorns, how the Combined Authority supports $1 billion companies. Previous guest on this very podcast, Jane Hutchins, Director of Cambridge Science Park, was our guide. Cambridge Angels Simon Thorpe was pulling double duty, along with Professor Dermot O'Brien, Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Innovation at the University of Cambridge, Lou Jopling, Chief Scientific and Innovation Officer at the Babrackham Research Campus, and up next, Dr. Uday Fadka of the Triple Chasm Company. Let the hunt begin!
My name is Uday Fadke. I've been part of the Cambridge ecosystem for 25, 30 years, maybe even longer, according to my son. And the thing is, I've been involved in a variety of roles, everything from an academic role to being at the coalface in terms of working for large corporates, but also building quite a lot of startups. So in the spirit of trying to get proper debate going, Jane, I'm going to remind everybody here that the word unicorn in this context was first applied in 2013 by a venture capitalist called Eileen Lee, who in fact worked with me in California. So unicorns in this modern context are about 12 years old, right? And I think one of the big things about the strength of Cambridgeshire is that in order to create unicorns, you have to actually have other kinds of animals in the zoo as well. In fact, I'm an author of a book called Camels, Tigers and Unicorns, available on Amazon, which you can look up. There are probably two other things worth just saying by way of introduction. The idea of the unicorns is very, very focused on the billion-dollar valuation idea. And so it's really a one output metric. And having spent many years finding different ways to fail at business, I decided to run a big research program. So, and that's why this badge says Triple Chasm Company, because that model was actually built out of Cambridge, very closely working with the university. And that Triple Chasm model, we looked at all the variables that drive growth, and there were 170 things we measured, and valuation is one of those. In the investment area, we're really talking about one important metric amongst 50. And so the key message here is that don't just focus on the money. Focus on all the other things that you need in order to build an ecosystem and an infrastructure. A 360-degree view, which is why Cambridge has been so successful. The second is understanding the concept of maturity, because all businesses start with usually one or two people before they end up the people employing hundreds of other employees. And so we have this question of maturity, and the triple chasm refers to three chasms, three hurdles. So we have 24 unicorns in Cambridge over this period. We have thousands of early-stage companies, which I would refer to as camels, because they go from oasis to oasis trying to find fresh money and resources. And then there are tigers, which do really well, but they have to operate in particular environments. There are some really good reasons why Cambridge has been successful. So our message to central government has to be, think about how you support the whole infrastructure and how you build the whole ecosystem.
Simon Thorpe.
As an angel, I've invested in over 60 companies in the UK, in basically across science and life sciences and technology. I've had 12 successful exits, I've had 12 failures, and I've got 30 plus companies in the portfolio. And my dream is for my companies to become unicorns. I haven't had a unicorn yet. I've had some soonicorns. So these are companies that have got close to $1 billion valuation, but might be in some cases at a somewhat lower valuation at the moment. But there's always hope. Why is it a dream to create a unicorn? It's not just, as Uday said, about just the valuation. It's about creating companies of real scale that make a real difference to the UK economy. And this is difficult. This is a hard thing to do, because my 12 exits have all been companies that are sold essentially too early for the UK economy. Why didn't they stay in the UK? Why were they sold to Microsoft or Apple too early in their journey to become unicorns? So that's something we might want to return to. But I should have said something about animals. Probably I tend to pick up the animals when they're very newborn tigers, and my job is to try and tame them.
My name is Dermot O'Brien. I'm the Pro Vice-Chancellor for Innovation at the University of Cambridge, which is a role that's very much focused on helping to create companies and impact from the research that takes place within the university. On the topic of unicorns, I mean, I would say the university is accountable for, give or take, about half of the unicorns that have come out of the broader Cambridge ecosystem. There's very few places, not just in the UK, but in Europe, that are able to build unicorn-valued businesses. So I would argue that if you can't build those businesses, then it probably means you've got missing infrastructure within your ecosystem that you really need to think about solving. In the case of Cambridge, we have been able to build them, and in fact, we've been able to build them at a rate that is leading in Europe and, of course, leading in the UK. I would say the reason we've been able to do that is probably driven by 4 factors. The first is that most unicorn businesses have really differentiated intellectual property, really differentiated science or technology innovation that underpins them. And in Cambridge, we have a world-class research and innovation environment that allows us to truly do things that are different, that are unique, that help elevate what we can do. The second thing you need if you want to grow those kind of companies is you need real talent, and not just in the leadership that helped to originate the idea, but in the team you build up around that idea that can implement. And again, we've got this huge attribute in Cambridge where we've got incredible talent that can come in and support the growth of these companies. The third factor you need is capital, and it's impossible to get really to £1 billion valuation of a business unless you're prepared to get people who are able to invest money to give you that valuation. We have more venture capital and more variety of venture capital than most other places, again, in the UK and Europe. And finally, the last thing you need to build these companies is you need a multifaceted innovation ecosystem. So yes, you need great research in the university, but you also need a large scale of early stage and scaling companies, because that's where you essentially borrow the talent from that grow these businesses. And you need large corporate companies who can also be customers or can also be sources of talent and partnership to help these businesses grow. And in the Cambridge-Peterborough area now, we have 5,500 knowledge-intensive businesses within that area that provide the talent and the partnerships and the capability. So that combination of world-class research, of capital, of talent, and of a kind of mature ecosystem is what makes it possible in Cambridge.
I'm Louise Jopling and I'm Chief Scientific and Innovation Officer at the Babram Research Campus. And we are one of the South Cambridge research campuses with, at the heart of it, an academic institute that has been there since just after the war, in fact. I'll bring in the animal piece because it was agriculturally focused back then to feed the nation as we came out of the war. But since the late 90s, it has been focused very much on human health. At that point, in 1998, that was when, to solve or to address market failure for early bioscience companies, was to create bioincubation space. And no sooner had they created that out of a converted cowshed, 4 companies moved in, it was full. And so over the last almost 30 years, the campus has grown and evolved to start to feed that hopper of the future unicorns in biotechnology, focusing around protein production, antibody production, and cellular platforms, stem cell biology in particular, to really incubate, start, grow, and scale those companies. And for those that have scaled over that period of time, and we have 60 companies on campus, from 2-person startups within our fully managed shared equipment facility through to 150 plus companies that have their own buildings. And that really is the Babram sweet spot in how we can support those unicorns to then, when they get even larger, they can move into larger space, but they will have to leave our campus. And just bringing it back to the unicorn and some of the points that were just touched on, we had KaiMab, came out of Sanger, grow and scale on our campus and constantly evolve. And they reached their own particular inflection point, and they were acquired by Sanofi a few years ago, 2021. That announcement was made, with a deal and milestones of about 1.4 billion. That was one great headline, but then the overarching impact for the talent that we had grown and cultivated on campus that can give back to our ecosystem. Sanofi, when they withdrew their R&D activities in the UK, fortunately we've been able to redeploy, re-energise and give back with the personnel that came from KaiMab, and many of those are going on to start their companies and their journeys, and we're working with them today to create that next unicorn that will fulfil the ambitions that Dermot referenced.
This is not a time to be despondent.
Uday Fadka.
Really, we need to be very positive and embrace the opportunities in an agile way. So when you see R&D funding dropping off, number of PhDs, you see VCs struggling, to me, every problem is an opportunity.
Finally, let's end the Eastern Promise coverage of UKREiiF 2025 with the Mayor of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority, Paul Bristow, a few short weeks after his election.
Well, Paul Bristow, Mayor of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority,
You've had a bit of a head-spinning start to your tenure, haven't you? Because you're right here at UKREiiF.
Well, I'm here at UKREiiF selling what's special about Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So for me, this is work. This is fun.
It's a pleasure.
It's fun. I get to tell the UK government, people who are interested in investing in areas, what's so special about Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. That's fun.
You've got quite the toolkit to work with.
We do. I mean, if you can't sell Cambridge, then you've got no right to be talking about what makes a place. Cambridge is a place where people come often at 18 years old. You know, they go to university, they do wonderful things, and they change the world. I went to an event last Thursday. It was the Cambridge Independent Science and Technology Awards, and I meant to only stay for 20 minutes, half an hour. I ended up staying for 2 hours because it was clear to me that I was the most stupid person in the room. There were people there, you know, using AI to deal with challenges. There were the people there who were altering the structure of DNA for personalised medicines. There were people there who were changing the world, quite frankly, and it was all happening in Cambridge. And so that real special status of Cambridge, complemented by the opportunity and the potential of places like Peterborough and the best agricultural land in the country in the Fens, I mean, you know, what's there not to like?
Well, you're ticking off all the Eastern Promise keywords of opportunity and potential, and we're just following on a really, really important and exciting talk about, and this has been remarks on outside the hall by others I've been speaking to around UKREiiF. You're not talking about what Cambridgeshire and Peterborough need per se. You're talking about how through investment in here the economy benefits of the whole country and beyond, and that must be an exciting story to tell, and we're going to talk some more about your point about stories. But where do you think you're going to start with, or have you already, with those storylines?
Cambridgeshire and Peterborough is one of the few areas of the country that contribute considerably to economic growth, the economy as a whole. So there's already, I think, an acceptance that we're special. I need to be able to tell that story, tell a narrative about the different parts of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. So, you know, it's easy to tell Cambridge in the way that I've just explained to you. How do I talk about the potential of Peterborough? Somewhere which is just 45 minutes, you know, from London, somewhere that's got that history around engineering, manufacturing, technology, somewhere where we've built a university which is educating our homegrown people. What we really need to do is connect our two cities, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, much more effectively, because at the moment I can get a train from Peterborough to London or from Cambridge to London. It'll take around 45 minutes. To get from Cambridge to Peterborough by train, it'll take 55. It's bonkers, but we can do something about that.
You've come from a background as a Member of Parliament, and I suppose it must be quite exciting for you to have got your hands on real levers. I mean, obviously parliamentarian has a very important job as a legislator, but you've actually got real levers you can pull, and changes happen on the ground, you know, in pretty short order. What does the difference mean to you, and how has it started to play into your new job, your new days in the office?
Well, Mike, I like that word levers, and I'm going to steal it, because that's exactly the right thing. I've been trying to articulate the difference between being an MP and being a mayor. When I was an MP, I was very proud of some of the things I was able to deliver for Peterborough in terms of money, investment for the university, for the station quarter. But for some of these projects, I wasn't able to see it through or influence in the way that I would have liked delivery. But as a mayor, that's what it's all about. It's all about delivery. Okay, so you're still selling your area to government, you're still talking about what makes you special, and you're still trying to get that investment from government, but you've got skin in the game. You've got the responsibility for delivery. You can see a project through from start to completion. That's what's really exciting.
I'm going to pick up now your plan, which I've written the words, to tell a story, and that really struck me about what you said earlier. We had a fantastic session on the Fens Reservoir yesterday. Let's start with the Fens Reservoir. So how are you going to sort of pull the lever on the Fens Reservoir? Because we learnt from that yesterday what, aside from just the fact that Cambridge needs water, something we all know, there's also so much potential and opportunity, those words again, bound up in that project.
Well, the Fens Reservoir is not just a big hole in the ground with water in it. The Fens Reservoir gives something for the Fens to hang their hat on as a destination. So in the same way that Rutland Water becomes a destination for tourism and for leisure, and we can see the same in the Fens. So suddenly the Fens are part of the story. And the Fens have already got the best agricultural land in the country. It's already feeding our country, but there's now something we can deliver for the people of Fenland. And so just to dismiss it as something that's happening anyway, it's about shaping that opportunity so it delivers for local people.
Well, there's another big tick on the keywords. I love it. This is brilliant. And I have to say, my eye was drawn immediately to build light rail in Cambridge. Now, as a Mancunian and a firm fan of the Metro there, tell us more about what you'd like to see what's your vision and the story you want to tell your electorate about why light rail is. I think it's a great idea. I like it just on spec, but tell me more.
Well, what I'd like to see is Andy Burnham take me around the metro in Manchester, and so he could tell me about how it was done and how it's benefited his city. Because I went and saw light rail in Birmingham. I've looked at the plans we've got in Coventry. And Mike, we've not invented matter transportation yet, have we? And we've got to get people round in an avenue which is quick, which is cheap, and which is reliable. And I think light rail ticks all of those boxes. We can see Cambridge is already congested, right? But we're going to double the size of Cambridge because we understand its economic impact for the rest of the country. And this is why I always say about trying to get ahead of things. Lobbying 101 is showing that the government can meet their objectives by doing what you want them to do. And they can meet their objectives of growth for the economy and for homes around Cambridge. We can do that for them. And in return, we want a way of getting people around Cambridge. And that's light rail.
You raise a very interesting point, actually, because this is one of the I'm really lucky in doing this because I get to be optimistic, excited all the time, like a little puppy, and asking people with questions like the ones I'm asking you. There is an element, I will admit, of you like sunlight kittens and lollipops, don't you? But how much do you like them? Is it a lot or is it a fun, huge amount? But you raise a very interesting point because, as you know, and as I know, so from my way back when time as a staffer in Parliament, the Treasury is not famously a sentimental body. No, and there are still people who balk at the idea that I know and that you've just articulated, and that it's about aligning your goals with what the government clearly says it wants to do. And that's not a party political point. That's simple common, I hate saying common sense because the one thing I've learned about common sense over the years is it is not as common as you think. But it's simple logic that you align with where the government wants to go and you show them how you meet that goal. Why do you think... I'm sure there's a good reason for it. Why is that still such a hard point to make to people who are very proud of where they live and they want to do the things they want to do with their places?
Well, because I'm in a hurry. Okay,
I like that.
I'm in a hurry. I want to deliver for the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I set out a very clear vision, and I can't do it alone. It's not all about me. It's about the delivery partners that we've met today at UKREiiF, okay, for private investment. But the most important delivery partner I've got is the government. Now, look, do I want to see more devolution? Do I want to end a situation where, we're waiting for approval from the Treasury? I mean, I think I'm sick of hearing for that, that statement. But we are where we are, and the biggest delivery partner I've got is the government, and I can show them that we can help them meet their objectives for growth by doing what we want them to do, by investing in light rail in Cambridge, by improving the Ely Junction, by dualling the A47. These are all projects that will create growth for the economy, homes for the future, but ultimately make the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough healthier, wealthier and happier.
Now, you've touched upon one of my principal conceits in doing the Eastern Promise, which is that the East of England has everything that the UK PLC and the world needs to grow and prosper and heal and benefit in the coming decades, whether that is in agri-tech in Cambridgeshire and indeed I recently was taken around the John Innes Centre for a day to see all the fantastic work they're doing there, the Quadrum in terms of keeping their gut healthy. We recently visited we talked to Hugo Ford about the new Cambridge Research Hospital. Fantastic project.
Do you see what I mean by being the stupidest person in the room?
Do you stayed for 2 hours, which I think you decided to stay for 2 hours, which kind of doesn't prove your point, I'm afraid. But we've all got, I think, and I hope you agree, a part to write in the story of the East of England, and everyone's part is their own most important part. But what I suppose I'm saying is, how are we, as the East of England, as the people of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, going to help you, the Mayor, or the office of the Mayor, write the next chapter?
Okay, well, I think it's that old saying, it's all aboard. Whether you share my politics or not, whether you represent a different party,
we salute the office.
Whether you represent a different party, on your respective council, what we need is an all aboard moment. I realise that we all need to be speaking insofar as we can with one voice, okay, and sharing that vision that we have for a place like Cambridgeshire and Peterborough and the East of England as well. So people say, well, how can you unite everybody? I'll just take Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. We've got to enhance what's special about Cambridge and continue to make that grow, to continue to ensure it makes that crucial contribution to our economy. But we've also got to make sure that what happens in Cambridge ripples out to the rest of Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, to the Fens and to Peterborough. Who can't get on board with that vision?
You raise it again, the point about that I've sort of detected in a lot of what you're saying, and I'm a firm believer in this myself, is strengths-based development. You focus on where you're strongest and everything comes up with it, rather than if you spend time obsessing over the points where you're weakest, which do need attention, but then the whole body as itself begins to atrophy as you're constantly firefighting. I meet really talented young people from all over the region, and I firmly believe that there is nothing, all the bright spots of innovation and tech, no matter whether they're from Galston, which is one of the poorest parts of our region, from the Abbey Ward in Cambridge, should be, if they're talented and the will, there is nothing that's beyond them in this region or anywhere, and we should celebrate them.
Look, I mean, I don't want to make it a part of political point, but what brought me into politics is that it shouldn't matter where you're from, it shouldn't matter who you are, it shouldn't matter what your background is, your religion is, what your race is, what your protected characteristic is. If you've got that God-given talent and you've got a little bit of luck, then the world is your oyster. Nothing should hold you back. Because, quite frankly, we can't afford to have a situation where we don't encourage the best in the country at what they do. Okay, we need everyone to reach their potential. Mm-hmm. If everyone is not reaching their potential, not only is it detrimental for that individual, it's also detrimental for our country and our community. Everyone should have the right, at the very least, to reach their potential.
Absolutely, and that's why we're so proud to talk to Ross Renton and Al Kingsley.
Oh, what a great man!
Exactly, he is, isn't he? Of ARU Peterborough. What a fantastic resource to have in your. I suppose you can't call it constituency, your mayoralty.
Well, it was in my constituency, but honestly, yes, it was. I mean, that university is transforming lives. So let me just tell you something. When I was 18, I did what a lot of people in Peterborough do when they become 18, and that's leave. Now, much to the detriment of the people of Peterborough, I came back. But so many people don't, okay? So many people don't come back, right? And that's huge talent that we're losing from our city and our county each and every year. And that's the point of that university. That university specialises in science, technology, engineering, degree apprenticeships. So that's what's really crucial. But it's serving a local need. I can't quite remember the statistic, but I think it's well over half of the people who are enrolled at that university are enrolled from PE postcodes. So that's kind of local people.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's just so important to see local people with the opportunity to go to university doing it. I've met numerous of young people in Peterborough and beyond who tell me that if it wasn't for ARU University in Peterborough, they wouldn't have gone to university. So we're not letting that talent waste. We're not squandering that potential. We're educating our young people in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough.
Ross Renton owes me a tour because we were out there for an event recently, and just to be on the campus, to be in Peterborough was actually lovely because it's something I don't do nearly as much as I should.
Did you enjoy the embankment?
I did.
Yeah, and we've got the lovely river there, and we've got like Fletton Quays over. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we can connect, kind of Fletton Quays with the embankment, with a bridge? We could create bars, restaurants, hospitality, a new stadium for Peterborough United. I'm really excited about the future of Peterborough.
Well, as you got the station quarter as well, which I was on this very stage a year ago, chairing the panel on with Al Kingsley and Arup and Peterborough City Council, talking about the station quarter, and it's come on leaps and bounds, and then you must have, again, a really exciting project that's got the potential to make Peterborough even more of a destination than it is already, and it is already a pretty substantial destination.
Oh, I mean, Peterborough's a great place, and we've got 900-year-old cathedral, we've got Ferry Meadows. Peterborough's but the best thing about Peterborough is not its location, it's not the cathedral, its history and everything else. The best thing about Peterborough are the people of Peterborough, and we need to make sure that, as we quite rightly said, that they reach their potential. And Peterborough as a place needs to reach its potential. It's 45 minutes from London. 45 minutes from London. Its location is superb. But we had a concert venue, if we had a swimming pool, if we had a decent championship football team, all those kind of things,
There's a lot of places in the region that would like to say that, would say the same.
Going gangbusters.
Good. Well, it's fantastic. I mean, you've got Huntingdon as well. You've got such riches in your patch, and I all power to your elbow in your coming term, and we look forward to seeing how we can roll in behind you, whether it's here at UKREiiF, whether it's back home in Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, all across the east of England, in Westminster, in Greater Manchester. We should make that happen. You're a busy man. You're going to have a lot of work following up the math of UKREiiF, because this pavilion has been... I mean, look at Dermot O'Brien over there. We can say, hello, Dermot. We're waving to him. He's wondering what the hell we're doing. The pavilion has been absolutely buzzing, full of people.
It is.
Wanting to find out
what's going on. And we're coming back next year, bigger and better.
Hi. This is what I hear. Good to know. Paul Bristow, Mayor of the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. It's been a pleasure. Thank you ever so much.
Take care, my friend.
My thanks to Paul and the teams on the ground in Leeds from Norfolk, Suffolk, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. I should also apologise to Essex and all the other counties that make up the east of England, as I didn't get the chance to go and see them this time. Next year, Paul will no doubt be joined by the newly elected mayor of the Norfolk and Suffolk Combined County Authority, and that will only amplify the region's ability to draw in investors. I really would like to know if you've enjoyed the podcast's coverage of UKREiiF in Leeds, especially if you weren't there yourself. Your feedback will help determine how much of next year's event we cover. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to get such a warm welcome from all of our region's stands. And our strategy of positivity and, as per Andy Williams, hopeless optimism has clearly struck a chord. Next time, you'll be hearing from the Norwich Business Improvement District in the form of Stephen Gurney and board member of the BID, Joe Faulkner, on their city centre manifesto. Do join me for that one. It's an extremely interesting chat with Stephen and Joe. And very soon, like 11 a.m. on the 11th of June, I'll be taking to the Riverside Walk at the historic Hoxton Mill, home of the O2H Group, for Cambridge Wide Open Week with my own one-man show, Choose Your Own Cambridge Adventure. I do hope you'll be able to come and take part. It's going to be riotous audience participation fun, though technically aren't all riots audience participation? And I hope to see you at Hoxton Mill in Cambridge on the 11th of June. Until then, bye for now. To hear other episodes of the Eastern Promise podcast and to find out more about what we do, go to our website at easternpromise.org.uk. Eastern Promise is a Pudding Shed production in proud association with Mills & Reeve. Achieving more together.